Hello everyone, welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm José.
I'm Mike.
And we've just come from seeing Ant-Man and the Wasp.
The sequel to Ant-Man.
That's right. So, what did you think, Mike?
I had a good time.
Uh-huh.
You?
Well, I had a very good time, indeed. I mean, there was a point in the film where I was thinking, oh, I hate comic book movies. You know, when I was younger, like, the thrill of the comic books, because I was a real comic book geek. And there was something wondrous about comic books. I mean, the argument then was that comic books were as great an art as any, that they dealt with the complex issues of life, and that they dealt with it in imaginative ways and beautiful ways, like some of the panels and the art, and it was conceptually so sophisticated. I mean, the best obviously were, right? And there was a point in this film where I was thinking, and now it's just become about like special effects and so on. And then after a certain while, I didn't care. Like, I kind of,
It got you.
Yeah, I was just kind of so charmed by some of the comedy, right? And actually some of the conceptualization of the imagery is pretty fantastic, right? The shrinking up and down and how they realize those shots, and actually just the images themselves are so dazzling.
Especially when they're small and they do an awful lot of very shallow focus stuff, which emphasizes it. When you see like the tiny little van bouncing around,
yes,
you see it in the trailer. Actually, that shot, it's wonderful. It's fun and it's captivating.
Yes,
yeah.
So, and I liked the humor. I mean, actually, I loved Michael Pena in this. I thought he kind of pretty much stole the movie. He was funny in everything he did.
First film as well, he did exactly the same. He stole that too.
And they've expanded this. So, and I love Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd is wonderful. But he doesn't get every moment the way that Michael Pena does.
No, although I think the film generally struggled for comedy a little bit early on. It did have a lot of good jokes throughout, and it got huge laughs in a very full cinema.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, spoilers coming up. We're going to talk about the whole thing. There's an opening. There's an early scene with Michael Pena and Paul Rudd, and they're not bouncing off each other well enough. It's a bit. I wondered have they lost it?
Yes.
And the moment I sort of knew that Michael Pena, his character, had not lost it was when he's being interrogated by Walton Goggins.
Yes.
And he's got a truth serum, and he returns to that, speaking very quickly, telling the story, and telling the story very quickly in a very lengthy way. And it returns to that thing from the first film of showing the story that he's telling in sort of cutaways, but the characters that he's talking about, when he says like, and then Ant-Man said this. And then it's Ant-Man actually doing the lines.
Yeah.
It's Ant-Man mouthing it with Michael Pena speaking it, right? It's really funny. And when that came back, I was like, yes! Actually, yes, it's still here.
That whole scene is a little comic masterpiece of acting and directing, actually. Because all the actors appear, right? So it's Michael Pena's flashback. So, they're kind of... He's telling the story, but you're flashing back to it, and it's the actors playing their characters, but... speaking it and playing it in the way that Michael Pena would play it.
Yeah, and actually, what it means is they also get to do something different.
Yeah.
Like Evangeline Lilly, for instance, who plays the Wasp, she plays the daughter of Hank Pym. She's a little bit stuck up. She's a little bit kind of uptight. But then when she's doing Michael Pena's version of herself, she's cool.
Yes.
And kind of suave and fast talking.
Yes.
And it's great to see her be allowed to do something different, even though it's through sort of the guise of someone else. It wouldn't make sense if she did it herself.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a brilliant scene. And actually I think kind of... I was going to say I wish the film had more of those, but that's not true. Actually, I think the film is very well paced. It's got kind of very good action. It's very funny. It leavens some of the more sentimental aspects with jokes, right? So kind of, the father-daughter scenes, which, the child actress who plays her is,
not amazing.
We've seen worse, but she's not very good. So the film brings in Bobby Cannavale, or it always kind of adds an element of funniness or a twist or a joke or
Yeah.
a little bit of an oversized line or a performance to kind of leaven, that more sentimental stuff, which I think is very good.
Yeah, and it doesn't overdo it to the point where it's like it's unable to take anything seriously.
Yes.
It is able to take things seriously, but it's always got this jokey sensibility underneath everything.
Yes. I was trying to think, so when I was thinking of this thing about these comic book movies, and because obviously on the one hand I love them, on the other hand, like most of them are really not very good, and and if you hold them to the highest standards of cinema, they're really not good at all, really, So and kind of, my thinking about them is, well, what are they about, and how do they enhance your understanding of either the world or what it is to be human, or so whatever themes kind of they take on. And I was kind of thinking about it in relation to this film, and I was struggling a bit, really.
Yeah, I feel it's slightly in the same boat with that, and I very often do with Marvel films. I very often think my initial response is very plain, and then after a few days of thought, I'll kind of come back and go, no, it was talking about this, this, and this. But I think Ant-Man is actually that light.
Yes.
It's not really pushing at anything.
No.
I feel like it.
And I mean, in terms of representations, kind of, I suppose it's nice that, they have like this melded family. Yeah, the Paul Rudd character, again, which was established in the first film and, kind of since developed. I just kind of wish that they would have done something more with the science, right? Because, again, just harking back to the comic books, one of the things that I love so much is that they grounded it in logic and science, right? So there was probably like some scientific principle about shrinking somebody, and then there's a level of invention, kind of attached to kind of something that was theoretically possible, and then kind of the audience's imagination acts with it, right? So if you accept the basic kind of principle as one that could be true or real or scientific, then your imagination can work with the film as to the rest and maybe add things to it. So I'm sad that these films that are really that could be so much about the beauty and marvels of science and the discovery of kind of how our world works, from the smallest particle to the largest element, that's not made more of.
Yeah, I kind of see what you mean. Although, if you're talking about kind of drawing on actual science to then provide a basis for invention, I don't know that there's ever been any kind of serious kind of undertaking of trying to shrink or grow something in the way that even in any way that approaches what you see in Ant-Man. I think it is kind of pure imagination, which is not necessarily a problem. Where the science comes in the film is not in trying to explain how they do it, but it's in talking about the quantum realm. Yes. Particularly in this film, it's the idea that Michelle Pfeiffer's character, the mother, has been lost in the quantum realm because she shrank way too small years ago. And then it's the possibility that she might still be there, and can we get her back? And I think the film suffers a little bit. The action suffers because it doesn't have clear enough consequences for failure sometimes, because there's this whole thing about there's this character that is referred to as a ghost. I don't know what her actual name is, who was involved in some accident years ago, which means that she is kind of phasing in and out of the real world and the quantum realm. You see her kind of shimmering, and it's cool, and she's in pain the whole time. It's explained her cells are divided, and she's in permanent pain. She believes that Michelle Pfeiffer's character, if she's still around, provides a way out because of, and this is where it starts to get really too stupid. It's about she's got some energy, and I could leech off that energy and use it to fix myself. So you go, fine, but then when the film gets to the point where she's trying to do that, at the same time as they're trying to bring Michelle Pfeiffer back to the real world, it should be very dramatic, and the film is robbed of its drama because you don't really know what the consequences are of her leeching off this energy. Will it kill her? Will it incapacitate her? What's actually going to happen? It's not really well established because the characters don't even know. No. The characters are just kind of going, maybe this will work. It's my only chance. And then of course what happens is that the ghost is stopped from doing that. Michelle Pfeiffer's returned successfully to the real world, and then she says, "I can help you," and she places her hand on the ghost's head, on the sides of her head, and it sort of glows, and then she's fixed, and she's no longer phasing between worlds. And you go, well, there's nothing to believe in there. They're just making it up as they go along.
Well, they planted it earlier when Michelle Pfeiffer says, "Oh, I've changed." You know, you not only change and grow,
but you
mutate. Yeah, I know. It's like you know, if it's so California, it's like they've looked at too many crystals. You know,
it's like she's been on
drank too much wheatgrass or something.
That's my point. Like it makes a certain amount of logical sense because they've done enough work to give you an idea that there's something going on, but it is so vague that you actually have nothing to bite onto.
It's a weakness in the film,
yes.
I think, and actually, it's also kind of a sign of a lack of ambition, really. You know, they could have made it more interesting and better. And one of the markers of that for me was the nonsense about Ant-Man's suit sometimes working and sometimes not working, without any logic as to when it works and when it doesn't work, right? I just kind of resent that because, you know, they are meant to be like genius scientists, you know, they've done this a million times, kind of, you know, they've had suits before, and now all of a sudden the suit works and doesn't work, and you know, there's no logic to why it worked, to why that happens. Like at one point, the Wasp says, "Oh, it's some circuit that's short-circuited or something." And I go, "Well, okay, so the next time he's put a suit on, they fix that." Like, you know, I mean,
I agree. It's it's taking a bit of a sort of jump, kind of logically, or in the believability of the characters and the world for the sake of some excitement in the action scenes, because then when he grows and when he shrinks, you know, it makes for a more exciting scene. But
it would have been better had there had been a logic.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, I agree. A logic as to why they haven't fixed it.
Yes, or just something, because to me, that not having a logic about when the suit works and doesn't is the equivalent of the mother putting her hands on
the girl's head.
The girl's head, right? Like,
it is pretty
it's
vague.
Fuzzy thinking, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way of putting it. But it does kind of get away with it because it's charming as hell, and and it's not pushing. It's not trying to make a big deal about anything. So I think you let it slide. I think.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, let's focus on that actually, because you know it isn't. We've spoken quite a bit and maybe given the wrong impression in focusing on what we see as the weaknesses, because the thing is, it is a truly delightful film.
Yeah.
And the audience was with it all the way. There were also children in the audience, even though we've come from a very late night screening. There were children in the audience because you could hear them also respond to everything. So it's a film that absolutely works.
Yeah. And it has that very cartoony aspect which kids are going to respond to, isn't it? With things being big and small. There's this whole thing about the big ants walking around. It's like that's become very normal now in their world. Just the ants are big and help out and can play the drums. And it's light. I mean, I guess these are sort of. I can't think of any better way to describe it. This seems like pretty bland words to use, really, but it is the charm of it, is that it's light and airy and doesn't make too many demands on you.
I mean, one of the things that I was thinking of when I was watching the film is, you know, because I didn't quite register when I saw the first Ant-Man film that the director of that film was the same director as Down with Love. Right? Have you seen Down with Love?
I have not.
Okay. It's a serious takeoff of the Doris Day, Rock Hudson romantic comedies on the 50s. So on the one hand, it's kind of like a postmodern film, which is all like surface, it's all style, they're all aping that world and those characters, and it's played really in a very high style, yeah?
Yeah.
And I remember kind of, you know, I saw it when it first came out, and I appreciated the style, and I loved Ewan McGregor and Renée Zellweger and the whole look of the film and the pacing on it. And on the other hand, I understood why it didn't work with audiences at that time, because it felt that it was like empty as well, that it was like pure style. Yeah, that kind of, it only operated as a kind of a postmodern commentary on 1950s notions of romance in general, and the pillow talk type Doris Day, Rock Hudson films in particular. And then I saw it on TV recently, and I found that exercise in style was just dazzling in a way that maybe I hadn't, I mean, I'd noticed it, but I'd noticed it as a lack the first time around. And actually, one of the things that impressed me this time around is just how stylish the film is. How
Ant-Man,
visually dazzling it is. Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and also how it does have this tone that it maintains throughout, which is a light comedic tone that kind of operates almost at every level. And also, I thought the kind of open, liberal, playful conceptualizations of gender is something that was in Down with Love as well, and the kind of you see in these elements here. So the film is not afraid really in a way to show love between, or deep affection anyway, between male friends, and also kind of there's all these little gay things that are kind of done quite playful in a way that doesn't feel homophobic, and so
for example,
the scene where they're talking with the mother and Paul Rudd ends up holding Michael Douglas's hand.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and actually it's held for quite a long time, that scene, right?
Yeah.
So it's a setup to a joke.
I've forgotten that one.
Yeah, but on the other hand, kind of at the end of it, the joke could have been Paul Rudd shaking the hand away or whatever. Whereas it's just the punchline is just a glance, right?
Yeah.
Like an intrigued glance.
That's
so I thought
that's when Michelle Pfeiffer is sort of taking over Ant-Man's body, and so he becomes kind of sort of quite feminine, and then if you didn't know, you'd sort of say that was kind of quite fey, or whatever, and and it's played really beautifully, and no, I agree, I've forgotten that. I really like that.
It's played with tact and style, because that scene could come off as really homophobic, right?
Yeah,
but it doesn't, so I think that's kind of like part of the interest and intrigue of this film.
On the other hand, representationally speaking, I didn't think that the black and Eastern European characters, the sort of sidekicks, the secondary characters in the security business, Ant-Man's mates, basically, they were very badly treated. For one thing, they have very little to do. Another thing, they're basically stereotypes. And actually, the black guy doesn't even really get to be much of a stereotype because he's got so little to do. The Eastern European talks of the ghost in a way that it's aping kind of the stereotype of Eastern European myths of whatever it might be, some witch, and it's got a name like El Chupacabra or whatever it is.
I thought the Eastern...
and then the black fella, I think he's played by T.I.
Yes.
He doesn't even get that much to do with it. He just gets to
got
sort
a few
of
jokes.
Not really. All he really gets to do is kind of act like sort of exaggeratedly surprised in a kind of quote unquote black way. Those two are treated really badly, I think, actually, by the script.
Okay, well, I kind of
direction.
I could see how you could say that about the Albanian or Bulgarian or whatever he was. He had a kind of a Count Dracula accent that was really milked. I thought T.I. was funny. It's true, he had a very small role.
It's not so much funny because I think the actor who plays the other guy is also funny, but I think what they're given to do is a bit
minor.
Not minor. I don't mind them having small roles to play, but I think that actually when they get to play their roles, all they really have to do is be stereotypes. That's what I mean. And that they are given so little to do means that's all they're doing.
Yes, well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of I thought he was funny. T.I. It's true that he's got a small role, and likewise, it's true that Lawrence Fishburne, who has a larger role, it seems also a bit wasted, really. But the person who I liked least in the film was the villain.
The ghost.
The restaurant.
Walton Goggins.
Yes.
It's actually this kind of multi-villain film, but
yes.
Walton Goggins.
Yeah, so I wished an actor with more authority and better comic timing had played him.
I think he's a good actor, Walton Goggins, and I think he could have played him better, unfortunately. But I agree with you, essentially.
Yeah,
he's not good enough.
He's not good enough.
It's got quite a cliffhanger.
It does, and actually,
Gasps
I love
from
that.
the audience.
Yes, I love that about the film, because actually, what happens is like it's a real serial. So the narrative is resolved, but then just as you think it's about to end, another little scene begins that sets up a completely different problem, a completely different question, and the film ends.
Yeah,
so you have to watch the sequel.
So what happens in this scene? It's a mid-credit scene, like Marvel always have. They always have cut to credits, and then the credits are big and exciting and produced with lots of graphics, and then it goes end of the kind of first part of the credits, and we'll have a scene, and then they do the rest of the credits normal, just white text on black, and then they'll have another post-credit scene which is normally stupid, and it was this time. I stuck around for it. It's just the ant playing drums. It's in the trailer. Boring. But the mid-credit scene it's great because you've had this very, very light film. Even at the moments of its highest drama, it's not really been about kind of making you feel like everyone's going to die. It's never. And so everything's been resolved, and they're on top of a building doing some experiments, and they send Ant-Man down to the quantum realm to pick up some healing particles. It's so fucking lame. Go collect some healing particles, and so he does. And then all of a sudden, they're not responding on the radio. And then you see in the real world they're just dust. They've been disintegrated. Oh my god! Because it's the snap, isn't it, from Infinity War, and they've all gone, and so he's stuck in the quantum realm. Super dramatic, and it was great.
Oh yeah, that was wonderful. I didn't get that. It was the snap.
It has to be, doesn't it? I can't think.
I think
what
you're
else
right.
it would be.
No, I think you're right, but that hadn't kind of clicked.
So he's getting stuck in there for the next Infinity War film.
Good. Let me point out a few things that are, just on my mind. So before I forget, get fucking Stan Lee cameos out of these fucking films. They're irritating beyond measure.
Easily the worst part of the film.
It's the worst part of the film. It takes you out of the narrative. He's not funny. We get that he created, some of these characters, though not all of them, and he's a credit hog. Right, like just stop putting him in the film. Something that was cute the first time around is just now completely irritating, and it doesn't serve the films. It doesn't help the films, and I can't imagine even the biggest Marvel fans, and I am one, kind of appreciate having that kind of old guy interrupting the film every time.
And it's a really lame line as well.
Yeah.
He's in this film, what it is he's going to unlock his car, and then they shrink the car in the middle of an action scene, and he says something like, well, the 60s were fun, but now I'm paying for them. And it's so fucking lame, and he can't deliver the line. And as you say, it just kills the scene stone dead.
Yes.
But what? It's awful. Yeah, awful. They should do it at the start, like Hitchcock. He would do his cameos like 5 minutes in, so that people would not waste the film looking for him.
Or it would be like somebody's reading in the newspaper and you just see an image. You don't have to give fucking Stanley a whole scene.
Yeah, but if they are going to give him a line, they can at least do it 2 minutes in, so it's over with.
Yeah. Anyway, I kind of that was deeply irritating.
There are two small things that I wanted to pick up on, which are, one of them's a quibble, which is how has Michelle Pfeiffer survived for 30 years? What's she been eating?
I felt the same thing. Kind of.
It's really easily over.
Actually, it's one of those stupid things, but that's the question that came to my mind. Is there a bathroom in the quantum zone?
I thought there might be something in if she was sort of frozen in time and then came back as Michelle Pfeiffer from 30 years ago.
Yes.
But of course, they just don't do that. I mean, the reason they've cast Michelle Pfeiffer is so that she can be the right age now.
Yeah.
And she's great. I like her.
She's wonderful. Actually, I think she's so. Michael Douglas has had a very interesting career, and he's played very interesting roles, and actually he was one of the superstars of the 90s, of the 80s and 90s, actually, there's no question about that. But when Michelle Pfeiffer appears on screen, she's not only beautiful, but she's troubling. Like, you get a sense of lots of things going on in her mind, right? And kind of, like, she just kind of evokes depth of feeling somehow, in a way that Michael Douglas doesn't.
Yeah.
Like you feel there's a deep well kind of there, right? And she's communicating kind of bits of it, with Michael Douglas, he's become a very expert actor. So there's no fault. I mean, I'm not faulting him with anything. It's just that Michelle Pfeiffer is one of those actors that are made for cinema. That she is just great, really, and she looks beautiful. She's not so good in the first part where she's meant to play young, and actually for a moment I didn't even recognize her in the.
Oh really?
In the early sequence. But the scenes where she comes out of the quantum zone, she's absolutely great, and I think I can't decide whether it's a performance or if it's just sheer presence, but she does kind of.
There's not a lot of performance to give. She's not in for very long. I think it may be presence, but I mean, as you say, she has presence.
Yeah.
More than just about anybody you can imagine, really.
She evokes a lot, really. With her presence. So it was a joy. It was a joy to see her, actually. So I kind of,
And of course, they've done the digital de-aging thing in the opening scene, which is set 30 years ago.
Yes.
Which we've seen before in Marvel films. They're kind of they get it well. They're getting better at it. For one thing, you can't really see the cracks. It's very good, but they're sort of normalizing it in a way which is a little bit troubling. Somehow.
Well, I think what happens is that you erase the things that I'm admiring about Michelle Pfeiffer now. The things that a human face evokes, and kind of feeling, and sometimes contradictory feeling, and a sense of experience, or something from the past, or like what I'm calling it, just like a well. Well, you digitize it, you erase it. Like you're communicating beats rather than a well.
Well, I didn't mean so much that as this kind of the film that made everybody think about this was Star Wars Rogue One, where they brought back digitally Peter Cushing as General Tarkin, Grand Moff Tarkin, and he was a completely digital 3D creation. He was played by an actor who did motion capture in the voice, and it was very troubling because it wasn't even taking someone who had provided a performance. Like, for instance, in Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow, they took actual film of Laurence Olivier and then inserted it and created a character out of it, which, I don't necessarily agree with either, but at least he had sort of at some point in his life actually done that.
Or Oliver Reed in Gladiator, who died in the middle of it, and
did they do some jiggery pokery to bring him back?
Well, they did some jiggery pokery to do a couple of scenes,
right,
that he hadn't been able to film.
Right.
To film.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing something. Yes, okay, but of course, but that's still nothing compared to actually inventing a new story in a new film and bringing someone back for it who had not agreed to it.
Listen, I tell you, as soon as the film industry thinks that they can do away with actors, they will. But so far they haven't delivered anything that comes even close to it.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring it up with regards to Ant-Man, because obviously with Ant-Man these actors are on the film, they're being paid, and they are well aware that they're being digitally aged back 30 years. It's just kind of the more normal it becomes, because it's not like in Star Wars it was kind of the point of that character. They were really showing off that they could do that, whereas in this opening scene in Ant-Man it's incidental almost.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought, which was just a little thing I noticed, is there's a 15-minute timer in the film. It's Hank Pym has it when he's shrunk down to the quantum realm to find his wife.
Yes.
It's a multi-layered action scene. It's a little bit Inception-y because there's people of different. Inception was layered through dreams, and this is layered through sizes. So he goes to the quantum realm within the building which has been shrunk down, which is within a car which has been shrunk down. He has a timer of 15 minutes, and Mission Impossible, the bomb was 15 minutes, and I wonder if that's just like the magic sort of time. That's like the magic dramatic amount of time for a final action scene. It's 15 minutes before you'd all die.
Well, the thing is that I think in Mission Impossible is done in real time. Yeah, so the 15 minutes is also the 15 minutes of the film, if I remember.
Really?
I thought so.
Well, I mean, I'd be glad to check when it's on DVD.
Yeah, we'll only be able to find out when it's on DVD.
Yeah.
Because obviously I couldn't, look at my watch, but my feeling was, and I was paying attention to,
right,
to try and correlate it. And my feeling was that in the Mission Impossible film, that the 15-minute deadline was in real time. That was not my feeling in this film.
No, certainly not. It's just it is there. But I wonder if like half an hour is too long, 5 minutes is too short, 50 minutes feels like it's the right dramatic amount of time for someone to be able to do something just about.
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, that might be right. You know, I mean, 50 minutes is a long time in film time, really.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, is there anything else that we want to bring up? I mean, for me, to summarize, what I love most about the film, which I think is a kind of a triumph, is, you know, maintaining this light, airy, comic tone. Yeah, the film is very funny, and also, you know, creating kind of this fantastic world with this dazzling imagery in which kind of, you know, these characters can operate. And yet, you know, what you remember most is actually not what is, I think, truly dazzling conceptualization of this world, yeah? This world where people go big and small. But actually what you remember is, like, you know, the people, yeah, the characters. Peña, some of Paul Rudd's better moments. He's brilliant, actually. I
He's
mean,
really good.
We haven't emphasized that enough, really, because, you know, he is the light comedy actor of the era, really. I can't think of anybody better than him. And you know, this is a role for him. It's really, really good. He's really good in it.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the lightness of tone. I mean, we've used that phrase a lot, but it's absolutely accurate. And there were so many films I was kind of comparing it to. While I was watching it, it's got elements of Contact with the kind of love across great distances and trying to get someone back. And actually, that's the same from Interstellar as well. And then there's other elements that are Interstellar, like when you go into the quantum realm and the visuals become all kind of screwy, like Annihilation in a way as well. And Inception I've mentioned. It's in a way it's like all these films had a sense of humour.
Yes.
You know, and it's those films are really deeply about ideas, and feeling. And this film is not. But but if it, you know, it sort of takes from those. I'm not saying it's like they are direct references or anything like that. But it just feels like it takes those ideas and kind of imagery in a way. And treats them with less seriousness and more lightness, and finds fun in them that actually those films never did, in a way.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Like, you can't say that Christopher Nolan film has ever been laugh out loud funny.
Yes.
But this is
true. Okay, last word?
I really liked it.
Yes, I loved it.
As much as the first one. Not more, but I like the first one loads. So
Yes. Yeah, me too. I highly recommend. And actually, I thought what was interesting is that, you know, it is a film for all ages, really. I think children would love it as much as adults do.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. It's not too adult either.
Yes.
But not in that patronising way of being like, but we also got jokes for kids.
Yes.
It's just generally
It's a film for the whole family.
really light, cartoony. Yeah, it's lovely.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. We are Eavesdropping at the Movies, and we are on iTunes, SoundCloud, Twitter, Facebook,
and eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much for listening.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Good.